today. With that, we're going to get straight into our questions. And we welcome, again, we welcome everyone to use the chat feature and include questions into the chat box, and we will make sure that we do our best to answer those. With that, the first question is, what are important first steps you took to act on your business idea? Alexis?
I tried to come up with a really good name for the business because my old name was a little, in my opinion, a little cheesy, kind of young. It was called Tutorific. Wasn't taking it seriously. So I just decided it was time to grow up. So Prepped and Polished, I thought was a really good name, kind of catchy, rolls off the tongue and easy to memorize. So another thing I did was I established a YouTube presence. So, you know, I have over 200 videos now, starting back in 2010. And my mission was to do two things. One, give people who can't access education, free education, but also put my name out there. I mean, you know, obviously there's some selfish reasons you're in business, right? So it was free advertising, basically. So nothing went viral, but I do have a few videos that have over 50,000 views. So sometimes things catch on, and now I actually get tutoring clients from all over the world based on watching me on YouTube. Another thing I did was I established myself as a thought leader. So I went out there, and if there was anybody like US News and World Report needed an SAT expert, I signed up and I was quoted. Another thing is when you're a tutor, you have to be wicked smart, we say in Boston. So I had to relearn calculus. I was pre-med in college, so I had to relearn. I had to study every day. I had to relearn chemistry. I had to take an SAT every day, whatever it took so that I could have more to offer students. And then the last thing I did was I hired. You know, I couldn't do it all myself. And there was a point where I really had to kind of pass the baton and have other people work under me. But I had to trust other people. And it was hard to let go. But that's how I really grew my business, is when I trained and hired people.
Thank you, Alexis. Lisa?
Well, first of all, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Well, depending on where you are. Again, my name is Lisa Harris, and my path was a little bit different to entrepreneurship. Lisa Harris and Company evolved really organically over the last 5 years, but it really simply began with me wanting to share my poetry. I wanted to pause my successful corporate career. I wanted to center myself and really follow some of my creative spirit that had been just bottled up over the years. And my hope was to be in bookstores all over the world and step into the speaking arena. That's typically what authors do. So before doing all of that, I really had to do my research. So for about 2 years, I really worked on finding a publisher that really was aligned and believed in the work that I was doing. And I was really, really happy and pleased to find a really fast-growing, women-owned, Black-owned, independent publisher here right in Minneapolis, which is where I live. And very quickly partnered with them on creating a very unique marketing plan. And you know, what was important for me at the time was if I was going to take this leap into this new land of entrepreneurship, that I really was having very strong communication within my family. You know, I had come off of a very strong corporate career, so it was important for me and my family to understand the financial implications that would happen in our household. So really making sure that we were prepared for what the next 2 years would look like as it relates to bringing income in, right? I think that's really important, especially for families. If your household requires multiple incomes, that was really important for me specifically. So my journey began actually as a poet, as an author, and then it really quickly, within 5 months after publishing, turned into something very beautiful and something very different. It organically moved into me creating space for women to share their stories. And I produced my first storytelling events and started coaching women pretty much 6 months right after my book. And so for me, the first steps really were finding great partners, right, that were aligned with who I was as a person and what I believed my book could bring to this world. And really creating a unique marketing plan and understanding financially for me what I needed to feel that I was moving forward and being a contributor at home and also with my business. So those were kind of the big pieces that took me into publishing. And I'll talk a little bit later about my business specifically in coaching. But that was really my first step into the arena.
Thank you, Lisa. And Reena, what are first steps you took on your business idea?
Yes, and hello everyone. I'm really honored to be here today. So for me, my business and my entrepreneurial journey kind of started out of my lifelong passion and love for health and wellness. It's just something that's always been a part of my life. I actually taught fitness classes when I was in college at UW-Madison for my entire undergraduate experience. And so there was this passion around fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, and then work-life balance really came into the mix for me after a long corporate career myself and working in digital media and tech in Silicon Valley. And it wasn't until I went through an experience of burnout, to be completely honest, that led me to realize I wanted, better work-life balance for myself to manage motherhood and my career and being a dual career couple with my husband, who's also a Badger alumni. But also I just had this strong feeling of wanting to empower other women. So the mission of my company is to empower women to flourish both personally and professionally through wellness. And so because of my experiences, again, with burnout and kind of losing sight of that passion and love for health and wellness and how important it is for us to be able to manage our lives in a healthy way, that really got me started thinking about how I could help others through my own experiences. Then the business person in me created, a business plan. I started to think about the name of my company. I secured a domain for my website. And then I really started to put content out there. So like Alexis, I created a YouTube channel. I worked with a video production team in Silicon Valley, who I've worked with throughout the last 6.5 years of my business, and just started to create, wellness and fitness content, which then later expanded into nutrition and work-life balance and mindfulness content as well. I started blogging on the topic because I knew that eventually I wanted to become a published author. So I really focused on writing about topics that I was passionate about and interested in sharing with others. And I am going to be publishing my first book. It's actually coming out this summer. And part of that was just to test, if there was a need in the market for these types of contents and topics. And I was working at Google while I was doing this on the side. I was saving up my sales bonuses and really kind of also financially preparing to take this big leap, which was a huge leap from having this corporate career for so many years. And then I started to build community because that's another big part of what Passion Fit, my company, is all about. So I started to offer classes and events and build a local community while also preparing to build a global online community as well. And here we are almost 7 years into this. I launched the company in 2014. And what's been really interesting and cool to see is that all of the things that I had aspired to do with the company and with the mission, I'm still doing. It's just happening in different stages. And that mission is still very much present in what I'm doing today.
Thank you, Reena. Ja'Mel Ashely.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. So a lot of my first steps of becoming an entrepreneur actually started in my mind. I am a young man from Detroit, Michigan, who did not grow up around a lot of entrepreneurs, who has a degree in social work. So I had to first convince myself that I was able to start a business, that I had the solution that was needed in my community. So I'm a social entrepreneur. So the next step I did after I had convinced myself that I could fix this issue of diversity in the community I lived in was I did some market research. Now, I went about market research in a very hands-on approach. I gathered a group of diverse friends and I sat down and I asked them, what is missing in this community? What would make you stay as a young professional of color or as an ally in the city of Madison in particular? And then I sent them out to ask their friends what they were missing in the city. At the time, Madison was having a very hard time retaining diverse population of young professionals. And what I realized from that market research is that what people were missing was a work-life balance. They were missing the life aspect. They were missing the ability to go out after work and enjoy things that they wanted to experience. So once I had enough information about the type of events that people were looking for, then I had to find key stakeholders. So that was the second thing that I did. I started putting myself in places that I would not particularly be and doing some professional networking. And so I ran across a lot of different people that were equally impassioned about diversity in the city of Madison, but they did not have a solution. At the time, I was an active social worker and I went to a lot of diversity and inclusion events. And I realized that one thing Madison is really good at, and this is not just Madison, this is the world in general, we're really good at having conversations. And oftentimes we make complex situations even more complex in the solutions that we present. So I started presenting a very simple solution to something as complex as diversity and inclusion. And it came down to just event production. So once I was able to convince these key stakeholders of the need and that my very simple solution was something that could help them not only address diversity and inclusion, but retain diverse employees in their businesses, then I was able to build from there. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Ja'Mel Ashely. Appreciate that. Awesome answers, right? So, I want to kind of recap real quickly, right? I think from all four of our panelists, we see that each of them started their business idea by really addressing a need that they felt, right? That was organic to who they were, right? And so moving on to our second question, what are some challenges and successes that came with starting your business, and what advice do you have for navigating this? And we'll start again with Alexis.
Hey guys, so networking was one thing I had to get really good at. So tutors, we work one-to-one with students, and tutors tend to be a little bit more on the reserve side, because usually, when you go to a profession like guidance, you tend to be a little bit more reserved. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit of a stereotype, but that's just pertains to me. I had to get out there to build a name for people to find out about me. I couldn't just be in a little cubicle with another student and grow a business. So I joined Business Networking International, Chambers of Commerce, Wayland Business Association, where I climbed up to vice president. I took educational consultants and guidance counselors out for coffee and lunch. And I spoke to organizations like schools, high schools, got in front of, an audience, just kind of went outside my comfort zone. And things kind of just took off once I started kind of meeting people and expanding my network. So that's something I recommend. Another thing I had to really work on, my challenge at the beginning, was my perception of success. So what that means is when I started, I didn't always dress well. Like for example, like when I started tutoring, maybe like 15, 18 years ago, in the summer, I wouldn't comb my hair for a session. I would just come after the gym. I would just have like a tank top on. I would go to a session. Didn't happen all the time, but I did notice a client wouldn't hire me the next day. So, it was unprofessional. So, I had to learn just to dress a little bit more business casual. Those kinds of little things do make a difference. I had to learn how to arrive on time for sessions. I had a home office before I have. Right now, this is a professional office, but before that, I had a home office with a broken screen, and it once slammed in, a client's face. So it wasn't professional for students to like go down a unpaved hill to go around to a home office. I had to invest into a real office. And now I have 3 offices. They're clean, there's branding, and they're quiet, conducive for tutoring. Another thing I had to work on was not wasting a lot of time on things that didn't work. So as I mentioned before, I had a YouTube channel that was going great, and it's still growing great. But there was a lot of hours I spent on Twitter and on Facebook, and I just wasted time. I didn't really grow a lot of followers on Twitter. My clients were on Twitter. So if I could just take back time, I would just go and double down on my YouTube videos and have 1,000. But I was just kind of like spreading myself a little too thin. And then the final thing that I had to really work on, I wish I worked on more earlier, is I wish I hired earlier. I was always independent, and I didn't, I as well didn't come from an entrepreneur background. My parents weren't entrepreneurs, so I never really learned to hire to grow. So I had to kind of learn I hired a business coach. It's not just hiring tutors. I had to hire a business coach, a human resources coach, and now I have a tutoring director. I have an executive function director, I have an office manager, and they just take the load off of me tremendously. And they actually do a better job than I would in those tasks. And so that's how you kind of expand.
Thank you, Alexis. Lisa, how about you?
Oh, wow. I listened to Alexis and I'm like, there's so many things that we all could share. I mean, the list goes on and on. So just for those of you who are here is, as I mentioned, my book kind of was a vessel to the work I do today. So now I really work very closely with women on reclaiming their personal power. And I do that through storytelling elements and narrative therapy principles. And this really helps women grow personally and professionally. And I offer courses, programs, I do storytelling events and special creative projects. And I would say one of the biggest challenges when I first started out was simply getting the word out. I did not have angel investors or venture capitalists invested in the work that I was doing. So it was simply, how do I get the word out? And early on, I recognized and realized the importance of leaning into community. And I know Reena had talked about community early on as well. It was really the support of all the people around me who believed in the work that I was doing that helped to get the word out. So really becoming active in social media, as was mentioned earlier, that's a free opportunity for your marketing. So that was a really big piece for me, was to create a team of brand ambassadors around me and launch team individuals who believed and were invested in someone like me succeeding. So really, a challenge, but the way I solved it was really leaning into my community. The other big challenge in the beginning, especially with a service business, and potentially Reena might understand this as well, is really starting to understand who your ideal client is. Because in the beginning, you want to serve everybody. You hope to serve everybody, especially if you're in a social entrepreneur type of position. And you really had to get focused on who that person was. And so really I started to open my eyes. Who was gravitating to my events? Who was gravitating to me? Who was gravitating to the content in my social media? And that really helped me to see who that person was that I should be servicing. And not only that, but also I would take the time to do surveys, multiple surveys, meet with one-on-one individuals who had come to my events or who had gone to my courses, really getting very specific about who they are, why they came, what problem am I helping them solve, and not making assumptions, right? So really that research. And the other thing that was really big for me in the beginning was a challenge was the fact that I came from corporate, right? The last position I had, I was managing over $250 million at a director level working with people all over the world. And I really thought like I had this really great foundation in strategy and financial planning, and I could do this. You know, this will be easy. I can work hard and I can do it. And I really had to realize that I didn't know everything, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it was really about opening up to wisdom and advice from other people. And those people weren't all CEOs or worked at these large corporations. Some of these people were our local community people who are really sharing their advice and wisdom. And so being very open-minded to where that knowledge comes from and not being super selective, because there's these great nuggets of information if you're willing to look for it. So I think that was really a big piece for me. And like Alexis, really investing in myself. Business coaches, life coaches, really your own personal development, because that's how you show up. That's how we show up every day as leaders and with our teams and in the community. So I think those were some of my biggest challenges, you know, and kind of how I navigated through. I mean, in the simplest form, I quickly had to understand people and time investment in people.
Thank you, Lisa. Reena, some challenges and successes that came along with starting your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you're building a business completely from scratch, that is daunting and overwhelming in and of itself. So I think building the business from scratch, building the community from scratch, and figuring out where to prioritize my time and energy, those were kind of some of the big things. I'm very ambitious. I want to do everything and anything that, you know, serves my mission. And because I am so mission driven and so passionate about the work that I do, I think being able to really stop and think about what makes sense from a strategic standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, and serving those market needs and solving for those problems, which many of us have talked about already. So that was kind of the first major challenge. I knew who my target market was. I knew that I wanted to focus on women, professional women, many of which are also moms that maybe have faced the same struggles that I faced with trying to balance my career and my family and experiencing that burnout. But as I had expanded, which was always part of my plan, to not only work with people individually, but to work with companies and nonprofits and universities and schools, then you have a much broader market. And like Lisa, I wanted to be inclusive and I wanted to service everybody. Like, you know, why can't my products and solutions also help men as well as women and people of different age groups and generations? But my marketing hat told me that I still needed to hone in on my target market. And so I did that, but I do try to focus when I coach, you know, my clients, when I have them come to my retreats or classes, or I do speaking engagements, I'm focused on the whole person, which does include her family. So that could include her significant other. It includes her children if she has children. It includes her professional self as well as her personal self and all of the things that make up who she is. And that allows me to then service more than just that individual client. And then when I do work with larger organizations of any kind, then I do customize my messaging so that it is suitable for that audience. But yes, the heart of the company still is, you know, professional women who are trying to balance their personal and professional lives. I would also say, yeah, the marketing, you know, I come from a marketing background and I definitely leverage my digital media and advertising skills, working at Google, monetizing content, becoming a publisher of content myself. I mean, that's what I did for Google, is I helped other publishers of content to monetize through ads. But I think, you know, the difference was I had Google's huge marketing budget versus my tiny little entrepreneurship budget. And so you have to work with that, especially when you are just starting out. If you're a self-funded company, which I was and still am, you have to really think about ROI, and you have to really be strategic and smart about where you are putting your marketing dollars so that you are reaching the right people with the right message in the right time. Like many of my fellow panelists, I definitely utilize social media because that is a great free option. Email newsletter marketing is also very big, and continuing to build my list that way. And then just other opportunities, whether it's speaking, whether it's collaborating with other entrepreneurs or other companies, working with bigger companies. That's a really great way to get the word out because they can help you scale. So all of those different partnerships really came into play. And that was a skill that I learned also because I worked in, strategic partnerships at Google and Yahoo and other companies. So leveraging those skill sets that I had, but then taking an honest look at being an entrepreneur, and what I had to work with was much smaller than what I got to work with when I was working for others. And then I would say the only other thing that's been super challenging is just, well, two things. One, being able to take things one product or service at a time. I have an activewear line, I have an online course, I have a book coming out, I do speaking, I do consulting and coaching and retreats and all these things, but I had to really force myself to launch them in stages to make sure that I really understood them, what went well, what didn't go well, get feedback from my clientele so that I could improve it and make it better before I launched the next thing and the next thing. So it's really pacing yourself and taking that time. And then also being able to say no, because there are a lot of opportunities that will come your way when you become an entrepreneur. People want to partner with you. People want to do all these different things. People want to sell you their software products because they think it's going to help you improve efficiencies in your business. And I think it really takes being able to sit down and think about what your priorities are, what your mission is, and stay true to that, and try not to I'm not saying not be open to opportunities, but not get too sidetracked where you lose sight of what you're really trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Reena. Ja'Mel Ashely?
Reena, I just would like to echo that being able to say no. You have to be able to say no. Two things I want to focus on today about success and challenges. Two things that I found to be both a success and a challenge would be buy-in and capital. So one thing I realized is that I was very good at talking to people. So I could get them initially to understand my idea, but I couldn't fully hook them on the line. So what I had to learn and understand is that buy-in is a lot more than just a conversation. You have to be able to present to people your plan. So I had to be able to build out a business plan that made sense to people that I was trying to get capital from. I already had the buy-in from my market base, but what I did not have was the capital. So I had to learn how to create business plans. I had to learn how to work through long-term and short-term goals and present them with different objectives so that people could understand what it is I was trying to execute. Once I understood the paperwork and the background of what it meant to get buy-in from someone that I was asking capital from, then I was able to obtain that capital. But what I also had to learn is that when you receive capital from other people, it then becomes a partnership. So my goals no longer were the only ones that were important. So I had to learn how to intertwine the goals of the business and the goals of my sponsors together so that everyone was happy about the end goal or the outcome of the events that we were putting on. Another thing I really want to focus on is that something that was really challenging for me was being able to grow with my market and being able to grow with myself at the same time. My market was very much so is millennials. So when I'm working with millennials, when I first started Intellectual Ratchet, we were 25 at the time, so I am a millennial. We were 25 to 30 at the time, the specific age group that I was working with. So what we needed in the beginning, or what my customer base needed in the beginning, started looking very different 3-4 years down the line. So I had to learn how to tailor the events to their needs. And once I was not able to do that anymore, then I actually walked away from that portion of my business and I passed it along to other people that were more in tune with that age group. Then I had to reassess myself. Okay, so I've grown, my market base has grown. What is it that I need now, and what is it that they need now, and how do they align? And that has brought me to where I am today with the launch of a subsidiary of Intellectual Ratchet called Artistic Creativity, where we fund artists for their projects. And another thing, I'm sorry, I just have to look at my notes because I'm a notes guy. If I don't write it down, I don't remember it. What did I write here? And I can't even read my own stuff. Oh, and building a team. So one thing I really struggled with in the beginning was building a team. What I wanted to do was to lean on my friends. And what I quickly realized is that although my friends had bought into the idea, they were excited about the idea, they were not the most qualified or the people that I should be working with that could help me expand or grow my business. That was very difficult for me. I did not know how to have that conversation with them to say, please keep supporting. I have to pull someone new else in this position so that there is so that the brand itself could grow and build. In my subsidiary that I'm working on now, I have learned that lesson from the first 5 years of business, and I'm able to not only pull in the right people that are necessary to help grow the business, but I also am not afraid to ask for help. And that will be the last thing that I think that I really have struggled with in the beginning of building my business, recognizing that I don't know everything and that it's all right for me not to know everything, because there are other people out there who have the skills and expertise and are willing to assist.
Awesome perspective, everyone. Thank you, Ja'Mel Ashely. And going next into the following question, how does your identity affect or influence your work? Again, Alexis, we'll have you start off.
So as a Puerto Rican business owner, I always felt like I was a little different than everybody else around me, and I am. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. My competitors did. I didn't get the Ivy League pedigree that a lot of my competitors did. Like one of my main competitors, he went to Yale, white, 6'4", knows everybody around town. And I just had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like maybe I deserved to be where I was. So a lot of it's just been self-esteem. I struggle. And that kind of stems back to high school. So I just had it was always hard for me to fit in as one of the only Puerto Rican kids at my high school. I didn't get along with like some of my teachers. I got C's freshman year. All right. So I would consider my self-esteem shaky at best. I had to compensate by working my butt off. I had to study really hard, as I mentioned before. So those C's turned into A's in high school. My guidance counselor told me not to apply to Michigan. I got into Michigan. So you can't listen to everybody who tells you what not to do. And then I got into later for Wisconsin for grad school. I had to take an SAT each day. Those tests didn't come naturally to me. So they do to my competitors. They can score a 1,600 in their sleep. I can't. So I had to work my butt off. I had to take an SAT each day. How has it in a positive way influenced me being Puerto Rican? I'm open-minded. I think I'm a little bit more open-minded than my competitors. It's allowed me to really want to understand who's on the other side of me, the students, so I can help them. And I think the Prepped and Polished has an excellent reputation today because we just kind of take care of the things that everybody should take care of. And it's not just about you, it's about the student and genuinely catering to the student's needs. If you take care of that, you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can make money. So, and I got to say, being a minority, person of color in business in a predominantly white profession is much needed. And our voices are really needed. So I'm very proud of it today to be a Puerto Rican business owner.
Thank you, Alexis. Lisa.
Well, I would have to say from the inception of my book and my business, diversity has been literally at the core. From my team to my clients to the women that show up at our sold out events, it is 30–40% underrepresented women. It's not a goal. It's not an initiative. It is just simply who we are. I am a first-generation college graduate. My mother is an immigrant from the Philippines. She came from a very poor neighborhood in the city. My father is Caucasian with Native American roots. We are Lukudare from Ojibwe. And when I show up in my business and as a leader, this is who people see, right? They do see the color of my skin. So owning my identity and ensuring that I speak up for myself and all those who are underrepresented in our community is super important to me. It was important from the beginning with the book and the women that you see in my book and all of the people at our events, is that there are people on stages that look like you. There are women in my book, in the pages, that look like you, because I didn't have that growing up, especially being multiracial. So it is in everything that I do and I am. And when I'm able to own my identity, I show up as my most authentic self. And that's really, truly where I've been able to build a foundation of trust with my community and the women, and to continue to have the trust of the customers that come through. So, but not only that, being multiracial is also a unique perspective, right? I have a foot in so many different worlds all the time. And it just has really allowed me to build bridges between drastically different individuals, drastically different communities. And this has really become one of my greatest talents, and really the cornerstone to the success I've been having, is that I'm able to bring these people together because I can speak to both of them in many different ways. And I'm able to create the safe community where people are truly embracing each other because they're in the same space as each other, which I think is so important. They're in the same space. Maybe they don't like the same things. Maybe they don't have the same education. Maybe they didn't grow up in the same town. But at the end of the day, they're human, and we are having conversations together, and we're connecting on a heart level. So I think that being a multiracial woman has allowed me to create these incredible bridges in my community and with my business that just, they wouldn't be part of it if I didn't show up as myself.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, Reena, how does your identity affect or influence your work?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. I'm a first generation born Indian American. I am a child of immigrant parents from India. My dad came to this country with $400 in his pocket, kind of rebuilt everything from scratch, brought my mom and my older brother and sister over, and I'm the youngest of 4 children. And so, you know, being Indian, but growing up as an American-born citizen and growing up in the Midwest has had a profound impact on my life and on my career. Lisa and I actually went to high school and college together. So we share, and we're, you know, she's one of my best friends, and we shared that experience of being minorities in a primarily Caucasian community and what that meant. And I think inclusivity is something that we all long for and want. And so that is definitely brought into my business and the community that I've created with Passion Fit as well. And, you know, building a local community in California, and especially in the San Francisco Bay Area, has just been amazing, because it's, you know, allowed me to work with women from all over the world, of different cultures, who speak different languages, who do come from different backgrounds. And that has really enriched my life and my business and the work that I do. I think also being a child of immigrant parents produces a very hard work ethic. And my work ethic is something that has always been there. I've learned it from my parents. And I put my heart and soul into my company. I've put my heart and soul into my book. And it's so much of the work that I do as well. And I think for me, focusing on wellness is so much more than the physical aspects of it. It's not about just exercising and fitness and eating healthy. You know, those are very surface level things, and they're important things, but the work that I do goes so much deeper than that. And it gets into people's mental health, their emotional health, their spiritual health. And so much of my, you know, my philosophies when it comes to wellness are inspired by both my Eastern and Western upbringing. So I grew up with yoga. I grew up with meditation and mindfulness and, you know, Ayurvedics and, you know, natural food foods and things like that. And that is very much incorporated into the consulting and coaching work that I do, and even just into the brand identity that I've created. And so when I look at wellness and when I look at the clients that I work with, it is looking at them individually and loving and embracing them for who they are and celebrating the fact that they're unique and different, which for me was not always easy to do personally. I have years of growing up wanting to fit in and wanting to be like everybody else and wanting to hide my Indian heritage. But now as an adult and as a mother, I have realized how important it is to celebrate that and know that that's who you are. And my mom always used to say, no matter where you go or what you do, nobody will ever let you forget where you came from, so don't you forget it. And that's still, I say that to my kids now. So I do think diversity and inclusion, I'm so happy that as a society, we're focusing on it so much right now. And yeah, it is in every fiber of everything that I do as a person and in my business.
Thank you, Reena. Ja'Mel Ashely.
Yeah, so the name Intellectual Ratchet embodies my identity. To be ratchet is a euphemism that comes from being a part of an inner city. It's often looked at as lower than or less than. And to be intellectual comes from my identity of being a college graduate, of spending time at UW-Madison. And so what I had to figure out is how to intertwine those two things. So my brand embodies what it means to live intersection of race, in the intersection of economics, in the intersection of queerness, and on and on. It's all about creating a space and providing resource to people that oftentimes have to assimilate to the status quo and do not feel like that we have space to exist and to be and belong. So I would say definitely my entire identity is woven throughout the thread of what it means to me to be an entrepreneur, because it's about being able to provide for people that are often forgotten about, for people that are often looked down upon, or for people that are trying to fit into a society while still holding on to our roots. It is so vitally important that we never forget where we come from. And for me, that means not forgetting that I come from Detroit in a single parent household. It means not forgetting that there were nights that I did not eat. It means not forgetting that there were nights where our lights and our water were cut off, and also while still celebrating the advance that I have made. There are so many people that I know that have this background in this story. And instead of saying, forget those aspects of your life and just assimilate into the status quo, it means that we remember those things, that we celebrate where we are, and we combine it together. Our culture, our music, the tastes, our food preferences, the movies we watch, and the music we listen to are all important to who we are as human beings and how we show up in the world. It also means to me that because intellectual ratchets are in a quite unique place of evolution or crossing over into a different economic status usually, it means that there becomes a bridging of gap between economics and between race. Because one thing that I truly understand and I value about my identity is that culture is something that is shared between many people. So it's not something that should be hoarded in just one community. It is something that is meant to be shared. And I find joy in bridging the gap between race and between economics and between backgrounds in spaces that we're not necessarily there to talk about those things. We're simply there just to experience those things. So it's about bridging those gaps and allowing people that come from certain backgrounds to feel whole in the spaces that they're in, which is why my motto will always be live life IR, intellectual ratchet, live life whole, show up as your complete, whole self. That's what I wish to do every day in my life. And that's what I hope that my peers are able to do. And the consumers that I work with, those are the type of spaces that I wish to provide for them. I do not like this idea of putting on one mask and removing it when you go in and out of different spaces. That intersectionality where we live, if we're able to show up in that intersectionality, we're all able to be our best selves. So my identity is threaded throughout everything that I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ja'Mel Ashely. And, I just want to put as we draw closer to our time together, I just want to thank the panelists for their open transparency and their honesty. That will conclude the core questions that we had for today. And we're going to move into some of the questions that we have from our panel, from our audience. And then what I'll ask the panelists to do is, as I pose the question, those of you who feel strongly about the question will just kind of answer first. We won't go round robin with all four of you. So the first question from our audience is, what kind of metrics did you track that preceded your success?
I can go. I think, when I was developing my business plan, I looked at, what were the revenue streams going to look like, right? And so how many people do you want to, join your community? If you're, I was creating monthly memberships. So how many monthly memberships per month did I want to, have? How many people did I want to attend my classes or my events? How many views and subscribers did I want to have for my YouTube channel, and how much traffic to my blog, and how many followers did I want to have and continue to grow in my social media channels? So those were some of the early metrics around, the different products and services and offerings, around, the numbers in terms of the revenue streams, and then also looking at things like the ROI of my marketing spend, and how much am I spending versus how much am I bringing in, and where is my path to profitability, and how long is it going to take me to get there? Just like I would say any business or any company needs to do. Those were, definitely things, leveraging my business career and experience to do so.
Thank you, Reena. The next question we have is, who has or sought angel VC or private equity funding, and how difficult was it to obtain? No one? So I'll talk a little bit about that, since that's in my field. So that's kind of a softball question for myself. I think one of the biggest barriers for people of color when we're talking about funding is understanding what funders want from business owners, right? I think it was alluded to what metrics Ja'Mel Ashely alluded to. How do you get funding, and how do you get somebody to be engaged after their buy-in, right? How do you monetize that relationship? Oftentimes we think that just getting somebody interested automatically means a windfall of capital, and that's not the case, right? People need to understand what the return on investment is going to be, right? How does that come about, and when does it come about, right? The who, what, why, and when is extremely important. And oftentimes when that is not on black and white, when that's not on a one-sheeter, you lose the opportunity to gain VCs or any private equity. You need that piece of paper to really summarize exactly what you do, and it doesn't need to be complex, but it needs to be straightforward, right? This would be something that somebody who's in third grade should be able to understand. It should be that simple, right? Despite how complex your business model may be. And so oftentimes I think that's something that many people of color, because we don't come from backgrounds where that is necessarily something that is spoken about, it becomes difficult to obtain capital. And so that's one of the things that I always advise my clients about, is being able to, have a great elevator speech and be able to send somebody something exactly with what you've hit them with, so that they can see it yes or no, and then follow up on that conversation. I think we have some time for perhaps one more question as we close out. And I'll ask one of the panelists to answer. Can you speak about, one of you speak about how influential a mentor may have been in your life and what that has done for your business? not all at once?
I'll answer that question. Mentors have been greatly valuable to my life. I think one thing that I learned early on is that it doesn't matter what background a mentor comes from. Two of my biggest mentors in the first stages of my business were completely opposite. One was a fiery redhead, 70-year-old white lady, and the other was a 21-year-old, a Black UW student. And I learned immensely valuable lessons from both of them. The one was able, the older lady was able to take me around and introduce me to people who she knew would be interested in what I was doing. She did not understand what I was doing, but she felt my passion and she knew who to connect me to. The younger one was able to help me understand, because he was in business school, how to connect some of the dots that I was missing because my degree is in social work. So one thing that I learned from those two people is that you can get information and knowledge from anyone, no matter what their background is. And that really opened up my eyes and allowed me to flourish as a business owner.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ja'Mel. So with that being said, I think that is probably our time together. It's near the hour. Again, I want to thank the panelists for their transparency and their honesty in joining us today. And on behalf of the Wisconsin Alumni Association, thank you so much again to Alexis, Lisa, Reena, and Ja'Mel Ashely for a fantastic panel discussion. I think there was a lot of information here. For those of you who are looking to connect with all of us, I think I speak on behalf of all the panelists, right? You can find us on social media, somewhere on LinkedIn, somewhere. Go for it, inbox us, add us. Thank you to all the viewers for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you again to all of you. Be well, and on Wisconsin.